Welcome to the Stressless Eating Podcast, where we help diet-obsessed and food-crazed women break themselves out of the food and body prison, end the dieting madness, and take control of their health for good. I'm your host, Leanne Ellington, and this podcast is about answering one question. How can you heal your relationship with food and your body and take a practical approach to this whole self-love journey, but without all that restriction, obsession, and shame, and without needing years of therapy just to do so? If you want to know the answer, you're in the right place. All this information is 100% free, so please subscribe to and review our podcast. Well, hello, ladies, and welcome back to the Stressless Eating Podcast. And I'm so excited today for our guests. We are here live, actually, in Nashville. I'm here with the lovely and amazing Amy Brown, who I'm going to let her tell you all about who she is. So first of all, just say hello.
Okay, hi. Leanne has come on my podcast a few times, which has been awesome. Well, you've been on 4 Things with Amy Brown, and you've also been on Outweigh, the podcast that I co-host with Lisa Haim on disordered eating disorders. So I've learned so much from you and appreciated the content you've brought to my listeners. So I'm honored to be here with you today on your platform. And just a little bit about me is I'm a mom of 2 adopted kids from Haiti. My kids are older. Like I have a 14-year-old daughter, but I've only been a mom for 3 years. So I'm still like in fresh mom territory, figuring a lot of stuff out. And then I have a son that actually turns 11 this week. So kind of crazy. They came to America when they were 10 and 7. So we've been on quite the ride. I was a military wife for a while till my husband got out of the Air Force. So I know a little bit about that world. I have been in radio for 15 years on the Bobby Bone Show. So we're a country morning radio show that's syndicated across the country. And I've been doing that for a very, very, very long time. 40 years old this year. So a lot of life changes come with that. Not that I'm not scared of it by any means, but I feel like that is something of, sometimes I get trapped, especially the business that I'm in, with this mindset of, some of the younger people that I'm surrounded by all the time. And I think I have to be that. And then I realize like, oh yeah, I'm not 25 and a pop star. I'm just not. So pressure's off. But I hate that they even have the pressure. That's the thing. That's what we want to see different in society. So I guess that's a little bit about me in a nutshell. I'm a dog mom as well, and I just became a cat mom.
Love it.
So if you have any other questions, you can ask me.
I just need to know where your cat is right now because I'm mildly allergic, but she's not in this room right now. So we're good.
Lucky you. We got apparently some crazy hypoallergenic cat.
Amazing.
But from what I've learned is no cat is really hypoallergenic unless it's one of those hairless cats, which we did not get. But there is a list of like 10 that fall into some sort of category where their dander isn't as bad. And she is locked away in my daughter's room.
Okay, cool.
Had no idea you're highly allergic. And yes, we're recording at my house. So that is hilarious.
Even better,
But no, I thought you were going to be like, where is she? I want to meet her. But
and now I kind of do. I'm like, I'm not highly allergic, but mildly allergic. And I'm like, if she's hypoallergenic, I'm picturing like mini Mr. Bigglesworth from from Austin Powers, from Dr. Evil's cat.
No, but she's like a long-haired Siamese, but my sister's allergic, and then my daughter's best friend is allergic, which she came over and was able to be here. So, but I don't want to test it out.
Okay, well, maybe I'll just like walk by the room on the way out. But anyways, I'm so glad to have you here, and there's so much I want to just kind of ask you and pick your brain about. And, one of the reasons we connected, our mutual friend Laura Lee connected us, and you have your own disordered eating story and your own relationship with your body, your own relationship with food. And now you're obviously in the industry that you're in, like you said, there's all that comparisonitis and all of the beliefs that, of what people think society dictates as beautiful and all those things. And now as a mom, being a stand and a role model of health and happiness and wholeheartedness and all these things, and really just finding your own way. And honestly, I just love how you show up in this world. And so I'd love for you to first and foremost, if you don't mind, just kind of share a little bit about your disordered story and what, how did that play out for you and what has it brought you to now?
Well, I started dealing with body image issues in high school, like a lot of girls and even guys, like a lot of people. I mean, I think that's just as you enter this certain phase in life, there's a lot that can be going on, just the pressures of even comparison then when your bodies are changing and hormones are there and you're hitting puberty. But then also I had some family changes that took place when I was about 9. And then, of course, going into like 10, 12, 13, 14, like my dad wasn't around. He had left our family, had a new girlfriend. Like there was just a lot I was trying to process and I didn't really know quite how to do it. And for me, it came out in eating disorder. Yeah. So certain things that I didn't know how to deal with. And then, my sister, my dad left her too, but she never had an eating disorder. Yeah. So it is interesting to think about, well, why me? Yeah. Why am I the one that had this? But she had other things that she did where her pain manifested as something else. But, I don't know why it happens to some of us and some of us it doesn't, but it is something I've been dealing with since about 15 or so. And I was bulimic in high school, but knew right away I didn't want to be bulimic. I remember calling my mom. Ironically, I was at my dad's house when I had an episode and I was so freaked out by it because honestly, I don't even know how I even knew how to do it. Isn't that wild? Yeah. Like, I don't even know where I picked up on it. Was it in a movie? Was it from a friend? Was it at school? I don't know. But somehow I knew that's what I needed to do to feel better. But it wasn't making me feel better. Momentarily, maybe, but then it freaked me out. So I remember calling my mom and telling her what I had just done and saying, I want help. And we went to some therapy, but I didn't really stick with it. And if anybody listening knows what you got to do, if you're diving into therapy, you have to be committed. Yeah. But my mom was a single mom. She was working. She was very busy and she volunteered for a lot of different things. I just remember my mom having her hands in a lot. And then I was like, well, this is kind of overwhelming. And I don't want to bother my mom with this anymore. So we just kind of forgot about it. Nobody ever talked about it again. Yeah. And then somehow I got a handle on it in college. And I don't know what it was, but I was able to not throw up anymore. I don't want to say anything that's like triggering to anybody, but I wasn't. Somehow I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. But the restricting and the binging never left me. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know that was disordered eating. Yeah. And nobody was talking about it at all. I just knew that there were times where I was eating an insane amount of food, but as long as I wasn't throwing it up, like I was good. Yeah. Like I was fine. I didn't have an eating disorder anymore. So that probably continued until I was 33 when my mom died. So I had maybe 12 or 13 years. I used to compare myself to like an alcoholic that had a chip. Yeah. And it was like I had my 13-year chip. Yeah. And then my mom died and it's like my brain didn't know what to do. And it went back to something from my past that used to be soothing for me, but also terrified me, right? But it was like the day after my mom died, I ate a meal. It was my sister's birthday. So obviously we were celebrating, which felt weird. But everyone was like, what would mom want us to do? So we had a meal. And then I just remember thinking, I can't have this meal inside of me. And I went and I had to do what I did. And then that started a very painful 33, I don't know, the next several years where I was so far out of control and I didn't quite know how to stop until one day, I guess it was probably 2019. So the quick math on that is 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I mean, or maybe it was 18. It was 5 years. I know I was saying a few years, but it was 5 years that it came back and it ruled me. And then not only was I grieving the loss of my mom, but then I was also had the eating disorder show back up. So then I also was super tiny. And because I wasn't eating, and then if I was eating, I was throwing up. And then you deal with the comments from others that are like, oh my gosh, you look so skinny. Well, and then I was like, okay, awesome. This is working. Because I wanted to be seen. And I almost wanted to be seen as like, I don't even want to say this sounds messed up because if anybody else has been there, I don't want you to feel like you're messed up because you're not. But it was just like, it had such a handle on me that it also validated my grief or not, sorry, that might not be the best way to say it. It also showed my grief was valid. My mom died. But it like showed people I really was sad.
Yeah.
Because if they saw me as skinny, then like, oh, she must be really sad. But then also I loved that they saw me as skinny because then it meant like I was doing a good job or something. Yeah. I was doing a good job with my grieving, but then I also was doing a good job looking good. Right? Yeah. And that's why we don't comment on people's bodies, is because you never know what someone is going through. I didn't know that at the time. Yeah. I know that now. Shoot, at the time, I might have been commenting on somebody's body and saying, oh my gosh, you look amazing. What have you been doing? And meanwhile, I have no idea. Do they have cancer? Are they depressed every night? Or do they have an eating disorder? And I have no idea. Do they have some other disease that they're not talking about because it's private? And I've just either added fuel to the fire for them to keep going with it, or I've shamed them because they don't want to be losing weight and they'd rather not. And now it's, oh, well, you know, in their head, they might be like, oh, well, thanks for complimenting my weight loss, but I'm depressed and I can't eat. But yay, cool. Now you think I'm skinny. So that's why we don't comment on people's bodies. Right. But like, I'm giving you where my eating disorder started then. And then, you know, you kind of think like, oh, in therapy as a child or as a teenager, I was like, oh, I'm doing this because my dad left and I'm trying to fill a void. But I don't know that that's entirely true. And I do think that there's we can be genetically predisposed, which is why I brought up that like my sister didn't have an eating disorder. My dad left her. But there could be something in me that was where I landed with it. And that's okay. That's part of my story and my makeup. But I guess we'll never know because I'm never going to be that 14-year-old in therapy again. Yeah. So I can't go back to that. But I do know what my therapists have told me when I went back after my mom died. And I said, this happened and I'm terrified. But I didn't know. And therapists, they couldn't really help me, quite honestly. The type of therapy I was doing, it wasn't going to help. But what they were able to explain is that when the trauma hit me, my body went into survival mode. And something that, again, I knew from my past that worked for me showed up, and it allowed me to numb out. Yeah. It allowed me to which in a way gave me relief from the pain because I was numbing myself with the eating disorder. And then it just went on and on. It was a horrible 5 years of because then, you know, the skinniness starts to go away because then you start eating. And then there was the more food, then the binging, then the restricting. And then I felt all kinds of out of whack. I was taking certain pills to try to counter everything. I couldn't sleep, so I was taking Xanax. I couldn't sleep, or so maybe I was drinking wine. I couldn't focus at work, so I was taking Adderall. I was a hot mess. And I will say now I am currently here, like pill free. Thankfully, I don't have an addictive personality because I have people in my life with addiction issues. And oh my gosh, if I did, that would have been turned into a complete, nightmare for me and everyone around me because I was not managing it well. And somehow I came across Lisa Haim's Instagram, which at the time was The Well Necessities was her handle. And I also came in contact with Kale Junkie. So Instagram, it's like sometimes people are like, social media is so bad. Yeah. But like for me, sometimes it can be pretty negative and like, well, you just have to like know how to deal with people at times or not deal. But I've found so many cool people. Like if you think about it, I even met Laura Lee on Instagram. And then I wouldn't be sitting here with you.
Absolutely.
Maybe because Laura Lee was in Nashville, we would have crossed paths. But Instagram just connected people. But I will say Kale Junkie posted about this book one day called Brain Over Binge. And I ordered it because I'm like, okay. Because it was like now that I'm throwing up again, I realized I had an eating disorder, right? But those 12 years or 13 years that I thought I had a chip, I didn't. I had such an unhealthy relationship with food in my body. I was so disordered, but I didn't know it because nobody said. I just kind of eating a bunch of food in private and being like, okay, well, I guess I ordered a lot and like I would eat and I felt uncomfortable. So then the next day I would eat nothing. Or the next day I would do a 3-day juice cleanse, you know? And then I was I didn't tell people about like the overeating or the undereating. I just would promote cleanses to people because I was doing them. So I thought other people should be doing them. And then that's where I have had to go back and do some undoing and some unlearning myself and some sharing with people, hey, I know that I used to share this on air on the Bobby Bone Show, or I used to share this on my podcast, or I used to be willing to do a commercial for this, and now I'm no longer willing. Because again, I don't want to be a trigger to somebody, and I don't want to ever send a message that someone shouldn't be putting food in their body.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. Because what I learned with Brain Over Binge is when I was that teenager and I started restricting my body from nutrients and calories that it needed by over-exercising, by throwing up, by not eating enough. And then again, if I ate too much, I got rid of it. So therefore my body wasn't getting what it needed. My body, again, like our brains and our bodies, they are smart. And it went into survival mode. And when I would start to give it food, it would be like, all right, we don't know when you're going to give us food again. So we're going to eat until we feel sick. Mm-hmm. And we're going to eat and eat and eat. It didn't know when to stop. And then I had messed up my whole vibe of like, I don't even know when I'm hungry. What is hungry? I can't even feel hungry. And Brain Over Binge allowed me to realize that's what I was doing to myself again as a 30-something-year-old. And I had been for the last 5 years. And I had to almost retrain my brain. I had to rewire it. And, we've talked about this, the neural pathways. I feel like I'm rambling a lot, so let me talk.
It's so good, though.
But
no, keep going.
The neural pathways, like we have to recreate them. And that book taught me to do that. That book taught me to, when I start going to the pantry, like, why am I going there? What part of my brain is really wanting to go there? And then I have to talk to that part of the brain and be like, no, we're not going to the pantry. Yeah. And then I was repetitive. Like the more I practiced not going, the more it built that new pathway of like, I don't need to go binge. Yeah. You are safe. You have food. You have food whenever you want it. And you're going to be okay. And I slowly had to start doing that. Well, then I got into this whole mess of like macros and whatever and MyFitnessPal. But I didn't know. I wasn't woke enough to know that was going to send me down another.
You thought that was air quotes healthy. Like, yes. I'm tracking, I'm macroing, like I'm doing all the things that's the healthy people do.
Yeah. Just like in those, 12, 13 years, I was eating kind of okay. Sure, I was overeating at times, but it didn't have a name. It didn't have the whole, like, I was overworking out, but I didn't realize that was considered purging. Yeah. I thought purging was just the actual getting rid of food out of your mouth. But like if you're exercising at the gym for, 2-3 hours, like, okay, well, you're purging, but in a different form. And I mean, I guess I can't put that label on everybody, but for me, I was. Yeah. And I had to realize like all the different things that I was doing even back then that I thought were, like you said, air quote, healthy. And MyFitnessPal, what could be dangerous about that? It was just helping me track my protein, my carbs, my fat, and my calories. But I mean, I had a limit.
Right.
And then I would cut myself off if I hit that limit. And it was so stressful. Like I remember making waffles for my kids and putting, the 2 eggs and the da-da-da-da-da-da. But then I was only going to eat one of the waffles. And then how many servings were there? So technically, did I have like a fourth of an egg or did I have, and I was that person that was literally entering in, okay, I ate a bite of my kid's waffles. So I had 1/16 of an egg.
Yeah.
And depending on the day.
Yeah.
And do you know how much time I was spending on that app that was such a time suck that I will never get back, and the stress I felt around food if I was eating out. Like I would go through the app and be like, okay, well, I ordered chicken fajitas, which is kind of like this. So I guess we'll guess the and then
it's like a part-time job.
Right. And then we don't realize what the chemicals we're releasing in our body surrounding the stress about the food, that we should have just eaten the food and it would have been better for us. And so then Lisa Haim, the Well Necessities, who we hadn't even started Outweigh yet. We were about to. And I told her, I said, Lisa, I feel like not like a fraud, but I feel like I should tell you that I've gotten a little bit too obsessed with MyFitnessPal, because honestly, for some people, tracking certain things might not be bad for them. Mm-hmm. For me, in recovery, it was horrible. But I had gotten so used to doing it and I was relying on it that she made me stop. She's like, Amy, you can't do that. Especially if we start Outweigh, you can't do that. So I ended up telling a little bit of the story on Outweigh just to be transparent. But when she made me quit, it was the hardest week ever. And keep in mind, at this point, I thought I was done with my eating disorder because I wasn't throwing up, and I hadn't thrown up in over a year at that point. But I was still obsessed with all of the stuff. Yeah. And so when she made me stop, I remember not being able to sleep. I didn't want to wake up because I didn't want to have to put my jeans on and go to work. I remember taking a picture with an artist. I can't even remember who was in on the show that day, but some, country person came in and we had to take a picture. And I remember not wanting to take the picture, but we took the picture. And I remember looking at it and thinking, because I had no idea what I had consumed the last however many days, like I felt so fat. And I remember sending Lisa the picture and I'm like, do you see it? I look different. I'm changing. My body's already changing because I'm not able to control it. And she was like, just honest, and she's like, Amy, honestly, you look the same as you did last week. Like, I don't want to bust your bubble, but you look the same. Yeah. And so it probably took a good few weeks to kind of get through that. And then once I was over the hump, I was like, it felt like this huge weight had been released from me. Like I was maybe wearing like a weighted vest or something. And then it was taken off of me. But getting there to where it was fully removed was very painful. But I share all this to say that my journey has been had a lot of different parts to it. And the body image stuff and the eating disorder has shown up in really sneaky ways. And I say that I'm in recovery because I don't have perfect days. I'm not recovered. I just am doing my best one day at a time. And I now can enjoy food. I now can enjoy movement or enjoy no movement. Yeah. I used to not be able to not move, or I would, again, think I was going to be, it was just going to ruin my life. But now I can have ice cream with my kids. The kids that my mom, the mom that my kids got when they first got here was very different than the mom they have now. Yeah. And I think they much prefer me because I've restricted myself. I've restricted them. And now my daughter's like, ice cream, who are you? Yeah. And I'm like, I'm your mom.
I'm your new mom. No, I'm just kidding.
New mom, who dis? Yeah.
2.0 version.
Yeah.
No, this is so good. I'm so grateful that you share your journey so transparently and honestly. And I really believe like that is what's going to help people heal, is because, I can't even tell you how many people when I was at the height of my struggles that had never struggled a day in their life and were telling me about the importance of, working out harder and kale salad. And it's just like, no, the people who have actually been through this are going to be the ones that are going to be able to walk you home, and the fact that, speaking to that, whatever fraud or imposter syndrome that we all have when we feel like we're out of our league or whatever, like I think it's just a testament to how qualified you are to be sharing the knowledge that you have and sharing your truths because you've been through it and you're still going through it. It's not you coming from some high mountain saying like, hey, been there, done that. It's like, this is what I'm doing. This is who I'm being. And this is how I'm showing up, You shared so many important distinctions in your testimony. One, just kind of highlighting that even though you had been, recovered for almost a decade or over a decade, and then it showed up kind of like with gangbusters, that is the power of what happens with the wiring in our brain. Like something got fired and wired in your brain alongside stress, alongside trauma, and that stuff dies hard. And that's why, when people say like, oh, you just have to want it badly enough or just like willpower, motivate. It's like, no, you can't out willpower the wiring in your brain. Like you've got to actually, rewire it and unwire it. And I think it's just really powerful that you're showing like, hey, you're doing the work now to actually have that rewiring process take place. You talked about it felt like a weighted vest. Like that's what I call the weight of the weight. People think it's the weight on your body, but it's the weight on your heart, your mind, your soul, the weight of restriction, the weight of secretly eating, the weight of, waiting to live your life until you lose X amount of pounds. Like that's the part that's the heaviest, And I think you spoke so beautifully to that. And also just about whether it's, social media or whether it's MyFitnessPal, like anything can be a tool or it can be a weapon. MyFitnessPal can be a tool to help you just be mindful and aware of what you're eating and use it every now and again to create some new awareness. But when it becomes this thing that we become codependent on and we, look to MyFitnessPal to determine our self-worth for the day based on the calories or carbs we ate, that's when it's a weapon of control, and the fact that you were able to just take that coaching and strip away those chains of control, like that's a huge thing. And I think a lot of people that are hearing this can relate to that.
Yeah, I had to reach a point of complete exhaustion and I knew that it was wrong. And you're right, I had to take the coaching and Lisa did an excellent job helping me through it. But yeah, it wasn't easy.
Absolutely. So what was it that you started noticing in terms of society? Because, maybe share a little bit about what you are exposed to every single day on the Bobby Bones Show, like seeing the slice of the world that you see. And what was it? And not from the people itself, like you're in, like you said, it's your own conversations, but like, what did you start noticing about, society at hand that made you say like, there needs to be a conversation about body image and comparisonitis and disordered eating and all that? Like, do you remember what it was that kind of spoke to you that made you realize like you needed to step into that?
Well, I think I just realized I was part of the problem. Now, again, we're to my audience. Like I was part of the problem. Like I just knew what I was doing and then passing along to my listeners, which was, I thought being helpful at the time, but now I realized it was toxic. And I even remember getting a note. I can't remember the person's name, but they sent me a note after one of my podcast episodes, or maybe it was something I think she tied in something she also heard me say on the Bobby Bones Show. And she's like, "Oh, Amy, I'm so sorry. Like I genuinely really like you as a person, but I can't listen anymore because it's too triggering." And I remember being defensive a little bit because I didn't understand. Again, I wasn't as aware. And I kind of thought, well, that's weird. Why in the world? I'm just being helpful. Like I didn't say anything wrong. And again, I didn't mean any harm. And I think some people that are kind of contributing to the problem too, they don't mean any harm. And so I kind of thought, okay, once I realized the changes I needed to make, then I felt like it was my obligation to also share that stuff. Again, not as the expert though. That's why I co-host Outweigh with Lisa, who is a registered dietitian that specializes in this space, eating disorders, anti-diet. Like she has the knowledge. And if for whatever reason she can't make an Outweigh episode and I've got to do it myself, I'll have you on as an expert. I'll have my friend Kat DeFata on, who's a licensed therapist that specializes in eating disorders. If I'm tackling a subject like on my podcast about it, I try to bring an expert on because I don't ever want to come across as the expert. I'm the person that's like kind of can bring it to people and then, just share my experience. But I say things, I still get things wrong at times. And I'm like, oh, but the thing is now I'm really open to learning about it and I don't get defensive. And I'm like, oh, wow, I wish I would have caught that, but now I know. Yeah. And then I think to answer that in the first part, it's that I realized the harm I was doing. So I needed to fix that. Yeah. And now start sharing what I was learning that was helping me get through it. Yeah. And then I think, Jessica Simpson put out her book. Did you read it? Open book.
I listened to the audio.
Okay, you listened to it. We've talked about that.
I actually really liked it.
Oh, I thought it was amazing. I thought it was so great. But it just made me think of like, some of these girls, and I'm on air, but like we do have video stuff every day. We do go to award shows. We do have different events. We have the iHeart festivals. I have various things that I do have to get kind of quote unquote red carpet ready for. Mm-hmm. And I had been about that life of, okay, got to get ready for this event. So I'm in a juice for 5 days. Mm-hmm. And I know so many others. But again, society said that's okay. Like doing that, I never thought there was any harm in that. I remember being in LA for different things and getting off the flight at LAX, and my first stop had to be my favorite juice shop because I needed to stock up on my juices for the few days that I was there because of whatever events I had. Right. And I remember going out to eat with certain people, probably at awesome restaurants, and I had my bottle of green juice. Yeah. But again, that was okay by study. So also back, I'm going to put a bow on this, I promise. But like I would see other girls in country music that are the actual stars in country, like the performers being like getting red carpet ready, showing all their workouts, like busting their butt, not eating for 3 days, but showing their juice. But it's okay because it's like, oh yeah, duh, she's got to be on the red carpet. So clearly, duh, this is what she needs to be doing. And it's like, but why? Why have we put that pressure on them? And then, you see certain celebrities after an award show or whatever, and then they're on their Instagram and they're like, at Taco Bell or McDonald's or whatever, and they're like, finally getting a Big Mac, can't wait. And it's like, what messages are we sending to people that like now that you're off the red carpet, finally you deserve food?
Yeah.
And it just wasn't sitting well with me. Yeah. But again, that's what people am I following on Instagram? What people are coming into the studio? Are they talking about? What country artists are being interviewed for Shape magazine or People magazine or whatever and being like, hey, what's your workout routine? What's your food? And me like trying to study that and be like, oh, well, this is what Carrie Underwood eats for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So clearly I should eat that way. And then I'm going to have Carrie Underwood's body.
Yeah.
But that's the messaging that was out there. And I'm like, you know what? First of all, not a pop star. But back to the Jessica Simpson part, which I feel like a lot of these, artists or performers may feel the pressure, whether it's coming from their fans or their record label or their management, that, they need to look a certain way on stage. Demi Lovato was even, talking publicly about it of like that she would be at the gym at night and day. Some of these pop stars, they may not even need to work out and they just have the perfect, whatever you define, I'm saying by society standards, perfect. I'm not saying that. Body to where they get out there. But then for other people, like Demi was like, well, no, I'm having to bust my butt to look that way. And it sucks. And my life is miserable. And then I think I'm paraphrasing here, but she was somewhere saying, but then why in the world do I feel like I have to wear a leotard on stage anyway?
Yeah.
Like why? And so why am I busting my butt every day to wear that when I don't even have to wear that? And by the way, if I want to wear a leotard and look a certain way, and maybe it doesn't fit the mold of what they say I'm supposed to look like, who cares? Yeah. And Jessica's, in her book, she talked about when she signed her record deal as a teenager, and she was already, this petite girl, but I mean, she did have a bigger chest, whatever. But like one of the first things her record label said to her when they signed her was like, she needed to lose 15 pounds. And I'm like, that's who we were looking up to as kids. We were looking at, Brittany and Jessica and Christina. And, I bet, I haven't read Brittany or Christina Aguilera's memoirs if they have them, but I bet they would all have similar stories of feeling that pressure from society. I know there's certain country artists that, talk about how if they get, a picture's taken of them on stage in a certain angle, they'll get comments like, are you pregnant? And it's like, what? Yeah. And then that makes them self-conscious and they feel like, well, I guess I need to work out and get my stomach super flat because I don't want people leaving me weird comments like that, which we shouldn't be asking people if they're pregnant anyway. Things we need to eliminate are commenting on people's bodies, asking people if they're pregnant, asking people when they're going to have babies. The list goes on. So I don't know if I answered your question fully because I feel like I have a lot of reasons as to why I decided I need to make a shift. Yeah. But mainly it was the freedom I was starting to feel. I wanted to share that with my listeners, especially since I had thrown a bunch of crap on them for so many years that I thought was helpful. And it really was damaging. And actually, I'm thankful for the few people that did call me out on it and told me they couldn't listen to me anymore, even though I didn't get it at the time. I'm so glad they did because that took a lot of guts for them to write me a really thoughtful, it wasn't mean, it was actually very kind. Yeah. And I guess that's what confused me. Yeah. I'm like, wait, what am I doing wrong? Yeah. But now I get it. They were trying to give me a heads up.
Yeah, totally. What a great way to just kind of rectify it almost. Like I totally get it. We've talked about the whole social media thing. I'm not really on social media that much, but because in my past lifetime, I was on TV and I was on the news and I was on CNN. I was just everywhere. And I had that realization of like, oh my gosh, I am teaching toxicity on live television in front of millions of people. And this is not okay. And I had so much shame. And honestly, like doing what I'm doing now is one of the ways that I'm like, okay, God, like this is me. I'm going to make it right. Like I'm going to share the truth now. Like I'm going to at least share the truth. And that's the thing. Like you said, like we were just doing the best we could with what we had. We didn't know what we didn't know.
Yeah. I was like, why is it bad to tell someone to wake up and have a green smoothie every day before they have food?
Yeah.
Why is that bad?
Telling us is healthy.
That's healthy. Why is it bad that I'm telling people to do intermittent fasting and not eat for 16 hours? I don't get it.
Absolutely. Yeah. But we don't really, yeah.
I didn't get it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just, again, that's why it's that much more powerful coming from you, because you've been through it, you're walking through the fire, and these are the messages that are going to resonate with those that need it, you know? And also kind of like one of the things I liked about Jessica Simpson's book is she kind of called out all the elephants in the room. She called out all the things that people were wondering about. And like, you're not hiding from who you were. You're shedding a light on it and creating new truths for people to step into around it and not avoiding it or ignoring it. It takes a lot of courage. So kudos to you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to, especially with my podcast or anytime on the Bobby Bone Show, why we have always shared is so that at least one person, whatever they're going through, doesn't feel alone. Some stuff we say is not going to resonate with people at all. And then maybe that show or that episode or that hour wasn't meant for them. But maybe it was meant for somebody else that either needed to hear that in the moment or needed to laugh in that moment or needed to cry in that moment.
Absolutely.
Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
We don't always share it all.
Right.
But when it feels right or we're able to share, we do. And, you know, this is just something that I know so many people are struggling with. Mm-hmm. And I'm so glad it's being talked about on so many different platforms in so many different ways. And we'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Society will get there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's a really good segue into my next question. You know, dealing with the problems that arise for teenagers and younger girls nowadays, and even people in their 20s. It's still really young. You know, people. I know they're technically adults then, but even that's like we're still developing our identity and all that. And the struggles are the same with the teens that I work with. Like, even though the circumstances are different and the situations that trigger them are different, like the same beliefs are being created. You know, is there something wrong with my body, or food is something to be afraid of or controlled or micromanaged? So that being said, like if you could zap back to your high school self or your younger self, and even speaking to, future generations and, the up and coming girls, teenagers, women that are stepping into the society that we're trying to help people kind of, protect themselves from. What are some thoughts that you would just invite people into, or what do you kind of wish that you knew then that you know now that you'd want to kind of impress upon future generations? That
nobody's your friend or is hanging out with you because of what your body looks like. Mm. And something that sometimes people do think is too, so I just want to say this real quick, is that eating disorders are all about what you look like, and they're not. Obviously, mine started as, probably I was feeling self-conscious as a teenager and had some body image stuff, 100%. But I also had some crap going on at home, and it was just this perfect storm. And that was my coping mechanism. But it was not all about body image. But I do think that somehow I got down the path of really being hyper-focused on that and always wanting to pick myself apart. And I think that when, you really think of why people love you or why people want to hang out with you, does it have anything to do with what you look like? Yeah. At all. And then you kind of look at your day and divide up how much time you're spending on yourself. I think about how much time I used to spend working out instead of quality time with friends or family. Yeah. Or skipping a meal because, food in my family was fellowship. Like food was my dad's love language. Mm-hmm. And I missed so many of his meals because I was scared it was going to alter what my body looked like. And my dad wasn't cooking for me or hanging out with me because of what my body looked like. And now, my dad passed away in April, and now I'll never have one of my dad's meals again. And I missed so many years, almost insulting him in a way, when his food would have been food for my soul. Mm-hmm. And I think if I would have had that messaging in my head early on. Like I could have that reminder that like nobody's hanging out with me because of what I look like. And if they are, then they probably should be my friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you seen that documentary Embrace?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. You have to watch it. So the website for it, because I had to look up where to watch it because my friend had told me that it was on Netflix, but it wasn't. So then I started Googling it and I found there's this whole website called bodyimagemovement.com. So it's body image movement.
Okay.
Like taking a stand.
Yeah.
Not like moving your body.
Right.
So I went to the website, it said it was available on iTunes. So I went to my iTunes and I rented it. So that's a way you can watch it now. You don't have to buy it, but it might be worth buying if you maybe want to watch it again or maybe show it to your kids. So I rented it and now I kind of wish I would have bought it because I want my daughter to watch it. She actually happened to walk in while I was watching it. She didn't stay, but she saw that I was clearly watching something where a woman was talking about wanting to love her body more. And I just remember under her breath, she walked by and she's like, what does that even mean to love your body? I hate my body. And I'm like, oh gosh, but she's 14. Sounds about right. Like that's when you start and she doesn't even mean, she just means like, what are these boobs? Yeah. Like she's not even able to embrace what's happening there. She's like, I want to cut them off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, and then, she did make a comment the other day about like, I don't really know that I have worth. And so I'm like, okay, note to self, make her feel valued and loved and worthy and make sure she knows that. So I'm going to be implementing different things as a mom that I can make sure so that she gets that messaging over and over and over because it is part of my job. But embrace the documentary. Like it was very powerful. And, it's just, we're inundated and we have been for years of like, this is the ideal body. Yeah. And my daughter's Haitian, she's got black skin. So I try to make sure she's not just around a bunch of white people all the time because, she'll say like, I want white skin. But then her best friend who's white will be like, well, I want your beautiful black skin. Yeah. And I'm like, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And my son, has said before, I want to bleach my skin. And, but for them, the messaging, even here in America, like as much we're making progress, right? But there's still not a lot out there that is representative. Like I have to be super intentional as a parent to make sure that they're seeing certain things so that they feel included. And so that's a whole nother thing. But it is about loving your body and the skin that you're in. And in the documentary, there was this one girl that was had been burned really badly. Beautiful girl. She was a runner. She got caught. She was running like a marathon or an ultra marathon or something. And she was in Australia or somewhere. Don't quote me. Mm-hmm. But she got caught in a wildfire on her run through the wild and her body got burned head to toe and she was unrecognizable. But her boyfriend stayed with her and she said she even had a thought of like, why are you with me? And he's like, well, I wasn't with you for how you looked. Like, you're still beautiful. And she was like, oh, wow. And she's a speaker now and she kind of like can speak to people, speak the truth to people. Like, stop. Yeah. Stop obsessing over what you look like because really that's not what matters. Like what's on the inside.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do that in a place where we're constantly inundated with different images. But if you look over time, it even did the whole, like the desired body in the 20s was very different from the desired body in the 30s. Then you had, the 50s, then the 70s, then the 90s, 80s. We're all very different bodies. Then you look at the body that's desired now. It's like we're always constantly trying to like, okay, well now it's like I got to get a big old butt and a tiny little waist and a da-da-da-da-da. Mm-hmm. We don't have to, but I'm saying by society standards. And then in 90s, it was like a wafer. It was like a model. This is the look. Don't eat.
Yep.
And smoke cigarettes. Yeah. And then you've achieved the perfect look. And it makes me think of that one, who's the supermodel that Kate said Moss. Like, yes, nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah.
But I'm sure at the time people were like, yeah, okay, you're probably right. Yeah. But now it's like, shoot.
Yeah.
Like people lived by that.
Absolutely.
That motto.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, there's an article about that shows the different perceptions of beauty in different countries too. Like, and it just shows it's not our body. It's a bunch of thoughts. It's a series of thoughts and beliefs that's dictating how we feel every single day. It's not our bodies. It's our thoughts about our bodies. It's not food. It's our thoughts about food. And when we can take that captive and create awareness of like, wow, I actually never voted on that, and have help influencing our thoughts, like everything can change, because that's the reality is like, let's say, I was just thinking of the gal that you were talking about that got burned in the wildfires. Like, what if whatever you're valuing yourself in terms of beauty just got taken away from you tomorrow? Like, do you know who you are without what you look like? And unfortunately, a lot of society would not know who the heck they were. And to me, that's a problem. Like, that's where we really need to root our identity in something bigger than our jean size, our scale weight, how much money's in the bank, our relationship status, how many likes we got on Facebook, whatever it is that we're using to qualify ourselves, right? And nobody's talking about that. Nobody teaches that, And so I'm going to check out that documentary immediately. That sounds amazing. It's like everything that I'm looking for and more.
Yeah. No, I feel like you would love it.
Yeah.
And they tackle a lot of different things. But it was just this one woman that kind of set out, she posted a before and after picture on Facebook that went viral, but she did the opposite. She used to be like a bodybuilder, I guess. And that was her before, normally before and after, which don't even get me started on those.
Right.
But what, is you're wherever you were not happy and then suddenly you're happy and smaller or whatever it is. But hers, she was doing the opposite, which, people weren't used to seeing that. And they're like, what? And her next one was like her kind of naked and bra, and she'd had a baby and she was, was a bigger size than the before. And it went viral, and then a whole Kickstarter got started, and she went on a movement and filmed this documentary. But it was from that viral post.
Amazing.
So again, another way where social media was used for good. Absolutely. And I will just say too, for people listening, is what you're scrolling through daily and the content you're bringing in is going to be huge. Like Liam was saying about our brains, it's our thoughts, and we can be held captive by those thoughts. And if you're constantly inundating yourself with someone maybe that posts a lot of before and afters, even though they're your friend and you want to support them, but they're on this workout journey where they're like, showing the progress pics and whatnot, that might be harmful for you to see. And it's hard to unfollow your friend, but you do have the option to mute. Yeah. And that way you're not seeing it. And then there might be some other accounts that you need to mute, because then what that does is that gives you a break from seeing things, and it allows you to reset your brain so that you can get on that journey of rewiring, and you can give yourself the new thoughts that you want, and you have more control over that. Absolutely. When you're allowing other people into your feed that are throwing off that, what you're trying to create for yourself, again, I know it's hard if it's a friend. I had to mute a friend the other day that was doing some before and afters, and I'm proud of all of her hard work. It's great. But for me personally, it wasn't helpful for me to see. And I put her on mute. Absolutely. And it's fine. I haven't thought about it until I'm saying it just now.
Yeah.
But I just think that's a good reminder of like, what content are you bringing in that you literally have control over that will help in your quote unquote recovery?
Absolutely. Yeah. And influence is influence. We forget that what we put in our minds, like what we're watching, what we're listening to, it all matters and makes a difference. And, oftentimes we feel kind of a victim to our circumstances of like, I don't know why I'm feeling this. I don't know why I'm comparing myself. I don't know why I'm feeling all this shame. And it's like you said, it's one way to kind of take our power back, get control back of the influence that's going into our brain, because it's influencing us either way, whether we know it or not. Like, is it taking us in the direction that we want to go, or is it taking us back in a direction that we don't want to go, or triggering us to feel things that we really don't want to feel or see? And so it's such a good awareness. Gosh, such a powerhouse of knowledge. I'm so grateful that you came on here. If people want to just follow you and watch you, they can, the Bobby Bones Show, you have 4 Things with Amy Brown, you have Outweigh. Where's the best place for people to get a hold of you or follow you and just keep tabs on all you're up to?
Well, on Instagram, I'm Radio Amy. Mm-hmm. And then I also have a website, radioamy.com, which is it sounds lame to say, but it is what it is. Amy Brown was taken. I think she's like a fairy artist or something. Oh. So I just had to go with the radioamy.com. But that's where you can find links to everything that I have going on. And also, we have a whole Espoir line.
You want to talk about that?
My kids being from Haiti, we started Espoir, me and my friend Mary, as a way to help the orphanage fundraise for them. And Espoir means hope in Haitian Creole. So you can shop Espoir, and we have different partners in Haiti that we work with and support their various needs. It grew more than just the orphanage. We also work with My Life Speaks and Project MetaShare, in case anybody's familiar. They're amazing and doing a lot of really great work. And Haiti's just near and dear to our hearts. And we've got a lot of different, speaking of being a cat mom, we have cat mom pullovers and dog mom, and we've got 4 Things gratitude journals and 4 Things totes, and just a lot of awesome stuff. We think that a lot of people enjoy, but also has a give back element, and it's all through the Shop Forward, my friend's business that gives back. Espoir is kind of under that umbrella. Yeah. And so I also run that account on Instagram, which is at Shop Espoir, ESPWA. So that's my other little thing that I do that's not radio or microphone on air related.
Yeah,
but
I love it.
It's a huge part of my life.
Beautiful. Well, we'll link all of that in the show notes so you all can follow her and shop from her and listen to her and just be influenced by her. So thank you so much for being here. And we've just loved having you and all that you've had to share.
Well, thank you for having me and also letting me ramble. Sometimes I'm like, Leanda might need to wrap me up because I will just keep going and going and going.
The magic comes in the rambles, in my opinion.
Okay.
It's where the beauty is.
As long as you're okay with it.
I am more than okay with it. I invite it.
Okay.
Anytime.
Good. All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, ladies. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to today's show. If you like what you heard and you're interested in breaking out of your own food, body, and diet prison, here's what I want you to do next. Head on over to stresslesseating.com. That's stresslesseating.com. And sign up to watch the Stressless Eating webinar, where I'll walk you through the exact 5-step game plan my female clients use to conquer emotional eating, self-sabotage, and finally heal themselves from the restrictive all-or-nothing diet mentality for good. But without obsessing or spending years in therapy to address it. I've laid it all out there for you in 5 easy steps. Remember, healing your relationship with food and your body does not happen by itself. You need expert guidance to make it happen, and we've helped clients all over the world take back their power from the food and find true and lasting freedom while enjoying life and warm chocolate chip cookies along the way. To see if we can help you do the same, head on over to stresslesseating.com. I'm Leanne Ellington, and I'll see you next time.